Good afternoon, everyone. It's the 5 minutes has elapsed, and I think we'll start while we try to rectify those people with technical issues. I am Yeye Abel, the technical advisor to the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Gas, and I welcome you to today's webinar hosted by the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. Gas has Petroleum Resources Gas, who has been a key leader in advancing initiatives geared towards the growth of Nigeria gas sector in line with the aspiration of the President to make Nigeria a gas-based economy. This session is supposed to be for about 2 hours, and we will be engaging in robust discussions and share collaborative opportunities on way to harness our natural gas resources to drive economic growth and sustainable development. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome to give the opening remark, the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources Gas, Right Honorable Ekperekpe Ekpo. Thank you.
Good morning. The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, industry leaders, policymakers, experts, gentlemen of the press, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to welcome you to this webinar with a theme, From Production to Market, Expanding Nigeria's Gas Potential with CNG, LPG, and LNG. This webinar is part of the effort by my ministry to seek the inputs of critical stakeholders in harnessing our natural gas resources to drive economic growth, energy security, and sustainable development. Bearing in mind that Nigeria has over 209 trillion cubic feet of proven gas reserves, we have a unique opportunity to transform our energy landscape and enhance domestic use and exports. Reflecting on the past year since the gas sector was given the pride of place by the visionary leadership of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, I am happy to say that much has been done in the sector to exploit Nigeria's natural gas resources for natural development and industrialization. The progress achieved so far is a testament to collective efforts and dedication of all stakeholders. Permit me to highlight some of the efforts being made in the gas sector since the inception of this administration and my appointment as Minister of State Petroleum Resources Gas on 21st of August 2023. And of course, today marks the end of the first year. And these include expansion of the compressed natural gas CNG infrastructure, such as the newly commissioned 12 NNPC CNG stations. So development of gas infrastructure projects like AKK, OB3, and NOGAPS. Commissioning of gas processing plants like the Asanot processing facility and spur lines. The Decade of Gas Initiative have identified 20 new projects to increase natural gas production by 4.6 billion cubic feet per day by 2030. Enhancing gas flaring reduction effort through the gas flare commercialization program. 42 additional sites has been identified. Expanding export opportunities. We are constructing about 6,000 kilometers transatlantic gas pipeline between Nigeria and Morocco. Driving innovation and technology using network codes and other technologies and innovation in the sector. These efforts are ongoing, and we are positive they will deliver good dividends to all Nigerians. As we navigate the complexities of the global energy transition, Nigeria must make bold steps to leverage its gas resources as a transition fuel. Therefore, as we begin this discussion, I am looking forward to new insights and collaborative opportunities geared towards the growth of Nigeria's gas sector. I am pleased to note that we have brought this event an assemblage of an eminent panel of experts and industry leaders who have volunteered to share their perspective and expertise. I'm confident that their insight will enrich our discussions and inform our collective decision. Let me express my appreciation to our moderator, panelists, and participants for being a part of this transformative journey. Your presence today demonstrates your commitment to Nigeria's energy future. I urge you all to engage actively, ask questions, and share your thoughts. Let us work together to unlock Nigerian gas potential and create a sustainable energy future for generations to come, in line with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Without further ado, let me express my sincere thanks to the organizers and therefore declare this webinar open.
Thank you, the Honorable Minister. He has set the stage for the panelists that will be providing valuable insights and engage in meaningful discussions on today's webinar, which is stemmed from production to market, expanding Nigeria's gas potential with CNG, LPG, and LNG. Please permit me to welcome to our panel, industry experts with the only lady in the panel, Engineer Tolulope. She is the Vice President Sector, Women in Energy, Oil and Gas, Nigeria. You're welcome, Tolu. Also joining her on the panel, it's Clement Isong, the CEO of MEMAN. Also in attendance is Engineer Joseph Musa, Director, Gas Development and Operations, NMDPRA. NJ Ayo, who is the WHO Executive Chairman, African Energy Chambers, is also on the panel. I think we'll stay expecting Ed Ubong to join us shortly. We're yet to get the NMPC representative, who I understand is Justin Eziala, MD NMPC Gas Marketing. To moderate this session is the Executive Secretary of Nigeria Gas Association, Mr. Taji Ogbe. We look forward to an enlightening section. Thank you. I now hand over to the moderator. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abel. The Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources, Gas, Right Honorable Ekperikpe Ekpo. Please permit me to stand on existing protocols. Thank you very much for this kind invitation at this panel session. The host has basically introduced some of the panel members. And before we get into it, I'm just going to set a little bit of the ground rules and also let us know how the session basically is going to go. We're going to have some remarks and or presentations from each of the panelists in turn. And then subsequently, we'll go into a structured question and answer session where I'll be asking each of the panelists in turn some questions, and then they will be answering those questions. And then we would go into an interactive question and answer session from the audience. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, participants, your way of basically interacting with the session is to use the Q&A box. If you look on your Zoom controls, you should see a Q&A box where you can actually type in your questions. So please, in typing in your questions, be brief in your question and also indicate who the question is directed to. This will enable the panelists identify questions that they would answer during the interactive question and answer session with the audience. Please, I think there's also a chat functionality, but distinguish between using the chat and using the Q&A box. The questions that you would like the panel to speak towards should be typed into the Q&A box. So having set some of those ground rules, I would also be reminding the audience about this from time to time. I think I would quickly hand over to the first of our esteemed panelists, and she's Engineer Tolulope Longe. So Ms. Longe, the floor is yours. Please give us your opening remarks for about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Taji. Good morning, everyone. The Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Gas, Honorable Minister Ekpo, industry experts, esteemed guests, fellow industry professionals, ladies and gentlemen, and all other protocols duly observed. Today, we'll be talking about Nigeria's vast gas potential and how we can unlock its full potentials and creating benefits for Nigeria as a country. With Nigeria having the 9th largest proven gas reserves globally, which is around 209 TCS, as well as unproven reserves of almost 600 TCS, which makes us potentially the 4th largest in that respect. We have an incredible opportunity to be able to drive economic growth, to be able to reduce environmental impact, as well as improving the lives of Nigerians. I'd also like to state that if I had an opportunity and could change the topic, I would say it should actually focus on Nigeria's potential and how gas can have a major economic impact on that potential. We already have a lot of examples on how gas can change and transform nations. All we have to look at countries like Qatar, look at countries like Dubai, and you would see how, for instance, Qatar has grown from a fishing economy just a few decades ago, to a major market maker in the energy industry today. I make bold to say that particularly in the LNG world, if Qatar were to sneeze and withhold its supply of gas to the market, everyone around the globe will feel the impact because prices will suddenly skyrocket. To paint a mental picture and use a living case study or example of how gas can make a phenomenal change in the story of Nigeria, I'd like to use the case of Nigeria's first and sole LNG export project, which is the Nigeria LNG project. Alone, this company has helped in reducing our national gas flaring and converting that gas, which would otherwise have been fled, to money. And as a result of that, over the years that NLNG has been in experience, he has paid over $44 billion in terms of dividends to its shareholders. And he has paid over $13 billion in terms of taxes and levies to the 3 tiers of government in Nigeria over the years that he has existed. And for me, this is just one company. So you can imagine if we had 10 of NLNG in Nigeria, you can easily multiply those dollar figures by around 10. And you can imagine what that would do for our economy, for Nigeria, and all that. I also make bold to say that one of NLNG's sole subsidiaries, the NLNG Ship Management Limited, has a fleet of about 22 LNG carriers in its fleet, which is the biggest in Africa and one of the biggest in the world as well. That is a local Nigerian company making impact globally. And then when I bring that into the LPG scheme that NLNG has pioneered and started around 2007, with just about 50 kilotons of LPG being delivered into the market in Nigeria. Today, the LPG market in Nigeria has grown to 1.3 million tons per annum of LPG utilization in Nigeria, which NLNG currently contributes about 30 to 40%. So you can imagine the impact of this single company providing this LPG. The impact the LPG itself has had is not only in reducing environmental impact, which would otherwise we would have been using things like firewood or kerosene. It also saves lives. There's a study that says that annually, about 470,000 Nigerians actually die over a 5-year period, which you can say almost 100,000 people dying annually as a result of firewood smoke. So you can imagine the impact it can have if we were to convert more Nigerians to the use of LPG. And then let's not count all the CSR projects that such a company is doing. But today we will be talking about compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas, and LPG. Please note that apart from these 3 key products, there are other things that gas can do in our nation and can help improve things. So you can also use it as a feedstock in fertilizer production, which would ultimately also impact agriculture and food production in Nigeria, and a host of other things that you can use it for in petrochemicals. To start with, compressed natural gas, which is otherwise shortened to CNG, is a cleaner, cheaper, and abundant fuel source, and it's gaining traction across the world. So you can imagine that in Nigeria, we can also leverage this, in quotes, readily available gas to provide CNG, which can be used significantly in our transportation industry, which would invariably also reduce our importation of fuels such as diesel and petrol. And then it would also be about the lower emissions that these also generate. It can also be used in the power industry. If I then look at liquefied petroleum gas, otherwise LPG or cooking gas, as we like to call it in the local parlance, this is also another very clean, efficient, and versatile solution for cooking and heating and power. And this is something that can be derived from the natural gas which Nigeria has. And if you can imagine that if you're able to produce more than enough than we consume, we can also export this to neighboring countries and to the rest of the world. And then finally, if I talk about LNG itself, which is the liquefied natural gas, which is an even bigger opportunity for Nigeria as a nation, particularly if we're able to produce this cleaner energy source, which the whole world is seeking for, and we're able to export this into the global market. Not only will we be diversifying our source of income, we will be making an impact in the global energy industry and security of fuel at large. But I say, to realize this potential, we need to focus on 3 key areas in Nigeria. Infrastructure development. the regulatory framework, as well as investment. If all these things must materialize, these three key areas must be focused on. We must build the pipelines, the storage, transportation networks in order to be able to get this gas to market, if it's indeed going to make a change. We need policies, and we definitely need incentives to encourage investors to invest in these areas and also encourage gas expansion in order to be able to make a difference. You know what they say? They say a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. Today in Nigeria, we have a huge gas reserve in Enugu. But today, that gas is literally worth nothing to us, zero economic value, as a result of the fact that at the time when the fire was hot, we did not strike and utilize this gas. So today that gas, coal is lying almost as waste in Enugu. I say, for me, we should not make the same mistake with gas. It is imperative that as a nation, we leverage the gas that we have to make a huge change in the history of our people and of our nation. And in conclusion, I say, Nigeria's gas potential is vast and it is untapped. Let us work together to unlock its benefits and create a brighter future for our people and for our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Tolulope Longe. She's a commercial manager at NLNG and also the Vice President of Sectors Women in Energy, Oil and Gas, Nigeria. So we're going to go to our next panelist, but before then, I just want to remind you of the ground rules. To our esteemed facilitators, panelists, when you are not speaking, please ensure that your microphone is muted and your camera is off. And when you are invited to speak, please ensure that you unmute your microphone and turn on your camera. And to our participants and delegates, please remember that you have the opportunity to type in your questions in the Q&A box. And during the question and answer session, some of your questions will be answered, and any question not answered definitely would be taken up by the organizers, and then those questions will be answered in due course. So with that, I would like to invite the next panelist to give his 5-minute presentation. And like he was introduced by the host, he is Mr. Clement Isong. Mr. Isong is the CEO of the Major Energy Marketers Association of Nigeria. Mr. Isong, thank you very much for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Taji. If I might share my screen.
Please go ahead.
There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, all other protocols are duly observed. I shall just quickly take a minute to tell you who I represent. I represent the Major Energies Marketers Association of Nigeria. We have 6 members with about 3,000 stations. We are everywhere in Nigeria. It's just that the map that you see there is where we have gas facilities. So there are some areas that we still need to cover in terms of our gas facilities. Our competence, our skill is in the distribution of petroleum products, whether it is wholesale or retail. There is a special expertise and competence required to run a distribution network framework. And currently, I think that when the expansion of gas started in Nigeria, a lot of investment was made. A lot of people bet on LPG. So we are trying to invest in doing a mapping currently to see what the growth of LPG has been. We work with the NGA and the LPG Association it will be very interesting because we believe that there has been significant growth in the distribution of LPG around the country, and a significant improvement in the quality of the distribution chain. We have moved to those days that people were using 50 kg cylinders on the roadside to fill people's gas, to essentially standalone filling plants or add-ons at filling stations. The improvement in terms of safety, the improvement in terms of efficiency of distribution of LPG has been significant, and it would be very useful for us to see and study how that has happened and what further advantage we could make from that. With respect to CNG, that is relatively new, and a lot of investment has to go into that. And this is one of the things that we think that we can contribute to in the discussion. Working with the authorities, with the presidential CNG initiative, we have set up a competency center within MEMAN, who focuses on all energies, but with a special focus on CNG, to try to bring the competencies and skills to the market, to the industry. So it's not just for our members, but it is to bring what we need to know about the distribution of CNG to the market. And one of the most important hurdles for us to cross is the safety hurdle. We need to bring the expertise in managing CNG safely to the market. Just some recommendations from us in order to ramp up the whether it is LPG or CNG. We think that a lot of progress can be made if we develop what we call closed markets. So, for instance, we know that Mr. Dangote, for instance, Dangote Industries use a lot of CNG in their trucks. That's what we call a closed market. They have a fleet, and they have set up an internal system to use CNG for that fleet. So lots of people in distribution who have fleets, we're encouraging in our industry, for instance, for the movement of PMS and other fuels, for our transporters to switch to using CNG. So that for us is an example of a closed market, but it's a fast way of ramping up the use of CNG. When we talk about LPG, for instance, again, we find that development of real estate in Nigeria is mostly is taking place in estates quite a bit. There is an opportunity there for us to run pipelines commercially in those estates and provide central distribution of LPG for domestic gas cooking. It's a line of business that we think is potentially available to ramp up the use of LPG. When we talk about increased access across the country, a lot of the movement of LPG in the country is still by what we call virtual pipelines, such as trucks moving the products. A lot of investment still needs to be made to move pipeline gas, which is converted as an end product to LNG or CNG. It's a different supply line from LPG, but the LPG, like I said, is already developed. But pipelines is one way to go. We are very excited by the AKK pipeline. We think that it takes product to a key area in the country, which is up north, but there's a lot of investment still needs to be done to expand the pipeline network in the country to move gas across the country. In terms of increasing efficiency, that is one of the things that we need to do if we move to pipelines to increase the efficiency. But the other things that we need to do to improve the efficiency in a gas distribution, whether it's CNG or LPG or pipeline gas or LNG. We think that safety is a problem. Safety is a problem with respect to the attitudes, both of our population and of the distribution chain. And a lot more needs to be done to improve the way we handle the supply chain with respect to safety.
Okay.
We think that a lot can be done to improve the licensing process, perhaps through using third-party agents. Thank you, Etaji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clement Isong. He's the CEO of the Major Energy Marketers Association of Nigeria. I think what we've been hearing as a theme, just from the first two speakers, I've heard about quite a bit of investment required, and I think I've also heard, thoughts around safety. So we're going to move to our other panelists. I think the discussion is heating up. Again, just a reminder of the ground rules. I took a quick look in the question and answer box, the Q&A box, and I did see quite a few questions already coming in. A reminder to the esteemed participants that you should indicate who you would like to address this question. And to our facilitators, you also have access to the Q&A box. Please scroll through and start to look at some questions that you would want to address during the interactive question and answer session with the audience. Having said that, this is still the From Production to Market, Expanding Nigeria's Gas Potential with CNG, Compressed Natural Gas, LPG, Liquefied Petroleum Gas, and LNG, Liquefied Natural Gas, under the auspices of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Gas, and our chief host, the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas. This webinar is really very well attended. I think there are, over 450 participants currently online. A quick note to the technical team: if you can allow the chat functionality, so that some of the chats to remind the participants to put their questions in the Q&A box can be broadcast on that channel, and also to remind them to indicate who their question is directed towards. So moving quickly along, I think I have in the room the representative of Mr. Olalekan Oguneye, who is the EVP Gas, Power and New Energy from NNPC Limited. And I think that is in the person of Barrister Justin Ezeala. And Barrister Justin Ezeala is the Managing Director of Nigerian Gas Marketing Company Limited. Sir, are you ready to go? I can see you're in the room. If you are, the floor is yours, sir.
Taj, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Let me stand on the existing protocols. Actually, I'm the Managing Director of the NNPC Gas Marketing Company, formerly known as Nigerian Gas Marketing Company. Representing the Executive Vice President, Olalekan Oguneye, who is unavoidably absent, is attending board meeting Nigeria LNG. From where the EVP sits, he has a real bird's eye view of the gas business in Nigeria. So I'm not going to go back to what my co-panelists talked about at Nigeria LNG. I think they have absolutely done a great job in terms of bringing Nigeria's gas potentials to the market. And but most Nigerians are really interested in, what do we do with all this gas? Yes, what do we do? And the first thing we do is that we need to assure them that the essence of having all this gas is to develop it where we can at least ensure energy security for the country. We ensure economic growth also using these resources that are abundant here, and then also their environmental benefits to using cleaner forms of gas. In terms of gas business in Nigeria, we've seen that the recent interest by the government in focusing on gas has also galvanized the spirit of Nigerians. We see a lot of people now becoming very big players in the gas business. Before we heard of Nigeria LNG, now we had Greenfields, but now there are so many domestic players involved in the gas business. And many of them are playing in the CNG and then the LPG sectors. We're also partnering with so many of them to expand our footprints in gas. For us in NMPC or NGML in particular, we are very much interested in bringing the CNG to the people. When I say CNG, we offer different opportunities for people to fuel their cars. If you come to most NMP stations now, you're going to see the opportunity of either using petrol as a form of fuel or using gas, compressed natural gas. Recently, in the past two months, to be precise, we have commissioned a 5.2 million square CNG facility in Ilasamaja in Lagos. At this NMPC station, you can take compressed gas in your vehicle, or you can also buy compressed gas for industrial use. We've also gone further to open a lot of retail stations where compressed gas has become the norm. We have about 10 of them operating now, and more are springing up around the corner. But at the end of the day, what do we really want to achieve? Two things: we need to avoid the mistakes, the learning curves that other people have gone through, India, Pakistan, Iraq. They've gone through this phase of putting their gas to use in terms of compressed natural gas facilities. So we are beginning to now introduce the same thing they've gone through without the same mistakes or the learning curves. At this point in time, we expect that with the population we have and the current opportunities the government has given us, there have been duty waivers on CNG materials. There has been gas pricing specific to auto CNG and all kinds of other incentives to make sure we can replicate these facilities across the country. So what we think we're going to do in the next couple of months is that Nigeria is going to be able to provide enough fueling facilities for CNG. At the moment, you get questions as if I buy CNG in Lagos and I want to travel to Port Harcourt, where can I refuel? It is a challenge, but many of these stations are springing up all over the country. And our plan is that in the next 1 year or so, it should become routine for you to enter any of the NMPC stations or partner stations, buy CNG, and move on as if you're just buying petrol. And that is our joy. So I think I'll stop now as part of my comments, and then we can take questions later on. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you very much, Barrister Justin Ezeala, the Managing Director of NMPC Gas Marketing Company Limited, presenting EVP Gas Power New Energy NMPC Limited. I think a very interesting, you can drive into a filling station and then you have a choice to pick either PMS or CNG, and quite a few of these stations already up and running. Just a quick question for you, sir, to just hold at the back of your head. I've had some people asking me, would there be a map? Do we have a kind of graphical where people can actually see where some of those stations are? Is that something that we can, the market can get maybe in near future, and also to know where the prospective stations will be coming up? Is that something that you can just quickly speak to?
Yes, thank you so much. A lot of publicity is planned around these sites as we continue to roll them out. Currently, most of them are located in Lagos and Abuja for obvious reasons. But as we go along, we will now tell Nigerians. Most of them are actually marked. Most NNP stations, you see the CNG logos on the station signages, and then the ones we are partnering with our partner NIPCO, Axela, and other marketers in CNG. Also, you see the CNG station boldly in green, indicating as green energy. So, but we'll send those things out as we roll them out across the country. Right now, in the next 2 weeks or so, or thereabouts, we plan to take FID on another four mother stations in different geopolitical zones of the country. And these mother stations will become the bedrock of the auto CNG facility in those geopolitical zones. So coming up, we're going to have in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, we're going to have in Port Harcourt, we are going to have in Owerri, and then we're going to have in, I think the last one is in Ogun State. Then first quarter of next year, we're also taking FID for Maiduguri, Kaduna, and I think Niger State. So 6 geopolitical zones covered.
All right. Thank you very much. So please stick with us. I'm sure there are quite some questions that will come for you in the Q&A section. Just a reminder of the ground rules for our facilitators. There is a Q&A box and questions are trickling in. People have been advised to indicate who it's directed at. So as you scroll through, just take a look at some of those questions that you might want to answer during the question and answer session with the audience. So with that, I think I would move to my next panelist. I think I will just quickly go to Mr. NJ Ayuk. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for joining us. I think I can see you in the room. So Mr. Ayuk is the WHO Executive Chairman of the African Energy Chamber. So if you're with us, NJ, please go ahead, sir. Hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. I was just saying thank you so much for this great invitation to have these conversations. I would say Nigeria is a gas country more than an oil country. And when we look at Nigeria as a country, it takes a lot for us to go from potential, I hear people talking from production to markets. But I want to take a different tack in this conversation, a tack where we're saying it's not about Nigeria being like Qatar or Nigeria being like Dubai or Nigeria being like something else. It's about Nigeria being, it's living to its true promise of what it can be and what natural gas can mean for the country. With 90 million Nigerians without access to electricity, we need to sit back and ponder. With many more without access to clean cooking, we need to sit back and ponder and think, not just what are the issues, but what are the solutions? And those solutions lie sometimes not just with what we've seen with the Petroleum Industry Act that was passed, but also our ability to get it done. Those enabling environment issues that have kept Nigeria from really reaching its true potentials. It shouldn't take so long to approve a project in the time you need to build that project. We need to have that big conversation on how a lot of deals, a lot of projects are stuck in the hands of bureaucrats, and where young Nigerians or Nigerian entrepreneurs are not moving, or even international investors. You know what that means today? It means that it makes Nigerians and gas sector not bankable. You could have all the gas in the world, but if it's not bankable, if it's not attractive, if we don't really address those above ground risk issues, then the money wouldn't come in. Today, we've seen more money going into Namibia and Congo, Brazzaville, into Senegal than coming into Nigeria. We should stop and think and ponder, because the resources under the ground don't mean a damn thing. It's about how we monetize, whether in-country monetization or that which you're going to go for export market. Can't talk about AKK or the Trans-Saharan pipeline all the time without getting it done. It's time for us to really look at that and start focusing on getting the job done and really doing that. And we can do that not just by words but by deeds that meet needs and action. And that comes with how we continue to incentivize the industry. We continue to drive up things. We continue to approve projects. Sometimes approving projects is our biggest, it is our biggest dilemma. And that just gives investment and capital a pause. And while a lot has been done over the last year, I want to implore that we shape this discussion into getting more action, into getting things, and also at the same time dealing with how we have a pragmatic, common sense local content that still welcomes investors, but also encourages Nigerians to be a critical part of the value chain of our gas industry. If we do that, if we shape that, then we start seeing real value, where it's not just about the global markets, but the regional markets, and making sure that people pay for gas, and making sure that we don't just subsidize things for subsidizing sake, but also driving those markets that we are able to really meet our true needs. So I'll stop right here, and I look forward to having a more engaging conversation on how we have a solution-based approach to meeting our gas demand, and also really dealing with energy poverty issues, because at the end of the day, that it should be our first obligation in Nigeria, and really driving up that energy growth. Thank you so much, and it's such an honor to be here with these esteemed and really smart people.
Thank you very much, Mr. NJ Ayuk, who is the WHO Executive Chairman, Africa Energy Chamber. So just stick around, sir. Like I said, questions are trickling in. You can see on the question and answer box. There will be questions directed towards you. Reminder to our participants that whatever questions you have, type them in the Q&A box, and please remember to indicate who your question is directed towards. So we're still on this from production to market, expanding Nigeria's gas potentials with CNG, LPG, and LNG events. We are still in the panel session. In this session, the panelists basically gave their brief opening remarks for about 5 or 6 minutes. And then after all the panelists have done that, we will go into a structured question and answer, where I will be asking some questions, and that would last for about 30 minutes or so. And then we would now go into the interactive, where the questions that you've typed in, the panelists would now actually address or try to address some of those questions, and then we would wrap up our session. I think we're already about, is it about 25 minutes gone into our session? I think we're still good for time. So I'm going to invite the next panelist, our next speaker. He's Engineer Joseph Musa, and like he was introduced, he's the Director of Gas Development and Operations from the NMDPRA. So Engineer Musa, thank you very much for your patience. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ogbe. The Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources Gas, please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. The other panelists have spoken very well on how to move the gas market to the next level. So as a regulator, I'm only going to talk about the regulatory side of the business. And as we all know, as mandated by the Petroleum Industry Act 2021, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, under the leadership of Engineer Farouk Ahmed, is responsible for providing technical, operational, and commercial support, including issuance of licenses, permit, and authorization to investors, operators, and all stakeholders wishing to engage in midstream and downstream business in the oil and gas sector. In the course of its regulatory functions, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority has issued 16 regulations, and we have more that is coming on the way. Which we say at this point that the regulations, we don't just bring them out, we actually consult with the stakeholders, authority, listen to all the feedbacks, and we were able to bring out these regulations. The NMDPRA commitment to make gas available to the industry and identify linkages with the strategic gas sector of the economy cannot be overemphasized. And this was demonstrated on the issuance of, on the area of gas pricing, infrastructure development, support and demand, which remains key lever for the promotion of gas availability, affordability, accessibility, and acceptability. And this also lay credence to what the first panelist spoke from LNG. She talked about gas infrastructure, regulatory framework, and investment incentives. The authority and other relevant institutions of government of the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Gas remain committed remain committed to promoting the fourth growth lever that I mentioned above. To achieve this, the authority under the leadership of Engineer Farouk Ahmed primary function or focus is to identify key factors driving domestic gas demand and explore innovative ways to meet these requirements sustainably. We examined the evolvement of the energy landscape, understood the changing dynamics of supply and demand, and identified the potential risks and opportunities that lie ahead. Actually, that is what regulators do. And we try to bring out policies, we try to bring out regulations that will address such issues. And also the roadmap that we try to bring out, which is comprehensive roadmap, is to ensure the availability, reliability, and affordability of the gas for all sectors of our economy. The NMDPRA tries to improve gas market regulatory impact, such as enhanced gas supply assurance through optimization of gas network performance, gas aggregation license performance, gas shippers, and so many others. In fact, we are also in the pipeline to make gas very lucrative. That is a network to make it a business hub for everybody. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, in consultation with all the stakeholders in the Nigerian gas industry, and when I mean all the stakeholders, I mean the operator, which is the transporter, the shippers, and also off-takers, has developed the Nigerian gas transportation network to support the continuous sustainable investment in pipeline infrastructure and the gas supply and demand threshold envisaged in the Nigerian gas master plan. We have had pipeline network for a very long time, and the operations there we felt will attract investors when we try to make that business a very lucrative business, where it is a business hub that stakeholders can converge in that network and do business. And the business is done transparently and is done in a fair manner. And such, we were able to develop the gas network. However, the industry competitiveness, accountability, stakeholder concern, new opportunity of operational trend, and growth aspiration led Engineer Farouk Ahmed-led NMDPRA to issue the revised natural gas transportation network in this year, 2024. It was signed in February. And to let you know how much the authority desired to see the growth of this industry, Engineer Farouk Ahmed, the authority chief executive, gave a complimentary copy of the network code to all the stakeholders on the network, even though the PIA said it should be purchased, but he decided to give it free to support the industry. The code of operations seeks to provide a level playing field for gas producers, shippers, and transporters of natural gas. Because money is exchanged in that network, we needed to make it very fair, transparent, and open the opportunity to everybody that is interested, because we believe by so doing, we'll be able to attract investment into the network. Strengthening regulatory enablement through the incremental implementation of all PIA prescribed licenses. And in this case, there are so many other licenses that will bring about the boosting or the enlargement of this gas domestic market, because I heard Mr. Isong, the MEMAN, was talking about taking gas, to other locations, which is like the last mile. So we are working in authority. We are working to see how we can make gas distribution license open to franchise, where gas will be taken from the backbone to the end users inland. We also try to streamline regulatory framework. And we do that by constant engagement with the stakeholders, where stakeholders observed that there is a lacuna or there's a gap in our regulation or in the cost of operations, and they hint us back, we'll try to close that gap. We also strengthened regulatory collaboration for effective gas sector development. And we do that a lot through the gas network. We also, with the CNG and the LPG that is in the making now, we try to broaden the opportunity by leveraging on the MDGIF, which we all know, that is the Midstream and Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund, to de-risk some of those businesses and give opportunities for the industry to expand. So thank you very much, and I want to stop here.
Thank you so very much, Engineer Joseph Musa, the Director of Gas Development and Operations from the NMDPRA, Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. So stick around, sir. Like I said, there would be some questions and answer session, which we would like you to participate in. I would also like to comment that I can see that there's a lot of activity. This is really, there are a lot of questions coming into the question and answer box. If you're just joining us, you can ask your questions, type it into the Q&A box. Please note that if you don't type your question in the Q&A box, it might not be treated. And to our panelists, you also have access to that Q&A box. You can scroll through and see some of those questions coming in from the audience. For the audience members, please remember to indicate who your question is directed towards. And moving along now, we've heard, I think some of the themes that I've been hearing, I've heard about investments that are required, I've heard about safety. I've heard about the spread of CNG as an alternative fuel, especially in the automotive sector. I've heard about concerns about the pace of investments, looking at it from an African perspective. And I've heard about the activities to stimulate and make more efficient the domestic gas demand. At this point, we're going to go now to our final panelist to give his own brief opening remarks. He's Mr. Ed Ubong, and he's the coordinating director of the Decade of Gas program. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Taji. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, please allow me to stand on existing protocol, but of course to recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister of State, Petroleum Resources, Gas, Honorable Obong Clement, who is the substantive Minister of State for Gas. It's an exciting topic each time we sort of get together to talk about gas, and this is timely because now we're talking about how do we expand Nigeria's gas potential. On the call, I see a lot of my brothers and sisters from NGIU probably sitting out of New York to Justin Ezela across on the NGML towers here in Abuja, and my sister in LNG. But basically, this is the first time in my over 25 years of working in the industry that we have had so much positive focus on gas. And here we always say in the industry that to get anything working at the ground level, you need the right tone at the top. And I wish to sort of just personally thank Mr. President, who has sort of taken up gas as a key activity to deliver during this administration, working on his theme, gas to prosperity. Of course, for first time in recent history, we now have a substantive Minister of State for Gas, Honorable Ekpo, whose sole activity is to grow the gas sector. And he has brought razor-sharp focus to gas, moving across the country, doing commissioning. Wherever there is gas, he's always ready to jump on board a plane to sort of see what he can do. But let me then sort of go back to the substantive conversation. At the Decade of Gas, we asked the question, how can Nigeria expand its gas potential over the next 10 years? It's a question of acceleration. Because like NGIU has said, we have the resources. Like Justin has said, we need to do a lot of commissioning. JJ Musa has spoken about that the regulator is also ready to support. And there too, for an expansion to occur, you need the right supply of gas. That is the core fundamental. You need to bring your resources from the ground to the surface. And at the Secretariat, what we have now seen is that Nigeria has a potential to possibly double its production during the next decade. We can add about 5 BCF of gas a day to the current production that we are having. We've spoken to all the operators in the sector. Over 20 projects have been identified. This year, we've already seen Total Energies announce final investment decision for the Arobeta project. Shell had announced FID for Iseni in January. We are still expecting 3 other big gas projects to take FID from the supply side, which would then ensure that gas supply is coming into the market. On the other side then is demand. And there on the demand side, like you've heard Justin talk about, we need gas everywhere. Globally, there is a strong gas demand. Like my sister has reeled some impressive numbers about what NLNG has done. LNG is always selling gas on the export market. But also on the domestic, there's a lot of people who want gas. The president wants us to replace PMS with CNG for auto vehicles. That's a huge market that needs to come up. So the demand is there. The industrial sector is also there. That also needs gas to sort of power its production lines. So demand also exists. In fact, today we think that the current demand is at least 3 times the current supply. So it's not then a question of who can take the gas. It's a question of bring the gas forward. But in between supply and demand, two important economic indices needs to be addressed. The first one is the issue of pricing. And there I must give kudos to the NMDPRA chief executive, who in 2024 has announced a domestic-based price for gas. That domestic-based price has made it more attractive for gas suppliers to supply more gas to power plants. That's the biggest sector that Nigerians want to work. So there, the price has increased a little bit by about 10%. But what it has done is that gas suppliers should now be able to put more volumes specifically to the power generating companies, which should then translate to more electricity for Nigeria. One of the issues also that has existed in the commercial space has always been, the government is owing gas suppliers money in the past. Then again, I must thank the Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources. For the first time in 13 years, he has gotten presidential approval to pay off all gas to power supply areas. That's a big decision by the president, where you just then sort of working the details to ensure that that presidential approval happens. So gas suppliers can no longer say we are being owed. They can no longer say we do not have the right price to take gas to power plants. It then sort of then leaves the last piece, which is important. Gas has to move from where it is produced to where it is required. And that is where we then talk about infrastructure. Infrastructure for gas comes in 2 forms. We have physical pipeline infrastructure, which means you have to build a line from where gas is produced predominantly in the Niger Delta to each of the demand centers across the country. There's a lot of work to do there. My brother, Justin Ezela, is a pioneer in that sector, where NGML is today the largest pipeline distribution company in Nigeria. Of course, Shell Nigeria Gas is also doing a lot of work in that sector. Falcon is doing a lot of work. Recently, Axela just commissioned this 5-kilometer line that will take gas into further down into Victoria Island. A lot of activity going on. I mean, last week, the president signed a treaty with the Equatorial Guinea government that would allow us to begin to do the work that would allow a gas pipeline to move from Nigeria towards the Equatorial Guinea axis. Of course, we know about the AKK. We know about the OB3 line, which is with confidence from the EBP reports that we will soon see gas move across east to west once we complete the Niger crossing. But then there is virtual pipelines, and there we're talking about CNG, LPG, and LNG. With virtual pipelines, it then means that you need to use trucking to move gas from your various compression plants to where it is needed. This is an exciting times because the president has set up the PCNGI Commission, who are also supposed to support every CNG project that will sort of help us close that auto gas gap that we currently have. And that's infrastructure. Of course, infrastructure does take time. You need to build the CNG compression plants. You need to buy the trucks. You need to build the final dispensing stations where, like my brother Clement Isong has spoken about. Ideally, what you want to see as we move across during this aggressive expansion program is that for everywhere where you see a former filling station that was selling diesel, petrol, that there is another dispensing station that says you can't get gas here. That will be the sort of steady state. But of course, we're starting that move now. NNPCL has begun commissioning a couple of stations across the country. It's an open space. Clement Isong's group are very keen to jump on it, open their own stations, but we have to stay connected across the value chain. Supply, infrastructure, pricing, before we can then sort of begin to see the full benefits of what we are trying to do. I'll pause there, Taj, and then hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edubong. So since you are still with me, I think we can now move into the structured Q&A session. Like I said, to our attendees, you can feel free to type in a question at any time in the Q&A box, and please remember to indicate who your question is directed to. So, Mr. Obong, thank you so much. You've talked about the supply infrastructure and pricing. You've put a lot of things together, but looking at the infrastructure part of it, a lot of people have spoken to the fact that there's a dearth of infrastructure. Now, the question I'd already initially wanted to ask was, what are the infrastructure being developed? But you've already spoken to that. I think maybe my question now would be, is it possible to quantify the importance of these strategic infrastructure to what we're doing, and how do we ensure that that adequate focus is actually put on the infrastructure side of things?
Yeah, thanks, Taji. I think maybe in terms of quantifying, and maybe just step back on one key infrastructure project, the completion of the OB3 crossing, which would allow domestic gas to move from east to west. On the east is the biggest, possibly the biggest domestic gas supplier, the SPDC Seplat Asa North project, which would bring to the surface about 300 million scf of gas a day. For us to begin to see the benefits of that huge gas supply, the crossing needs to be completed. And here I must thank the minister, the EVP Gas and Power, who meet every month to check the status of that difficult work that is being carried out by the Nigerian Gas Infrastructure, or NNPC Gas Infrastructure Company, the NGIC. We are still confident that we will soon see the completion of that critical crossing, which would allow us to increase domestic gas production by 25%. Immediately, that crossing is complete. It then means that power plants sitting on the west, the likes of Egbin, will begin to see more supply options coming from the much richer eastern side of the Delta. Of course, we are also sort of undergoing the AKK project, where the EVP has committed to ensure that we see first the completion of that project by Q1 2025. This is a critical project because once gas can get to Abuja and then begin to move towards Kano and Kaduna, which were traditionally industrial hubs, would also then begin to see a lot of consumption and demand materializing in that sector. Of course, the AKK is a precursor for the Nigeria-Morocco line if you are then going through the northern part of Africa. So once that is completed, you can then talk about how do you meet demand on the export side. Late last year, the minister, together with NMPCL, also signed an agreement in Morocco to build the TSGP, which will be an extension of the WACP line, which would then ensure that the whole of West Africa, about 11 to 12 countries, are connected as gas then moves across that axis towards Morocco, and of course with the potential to sort of move forward. Infrastructure is key. Without it, you cannot sort of move gas with the sort of volumes that you require to sort of grow the industrial market. Virtual options will continue to be a sort of add-on to it, but we need to ensure that the pipelines are built. And then based on that basis, if we then add CNG, LPG, and LNG, then we will ensure that the market is deepened. We hold our breath and we wait for the completion of the OB3 crossing. Like I said, it's the biggest, most important infrastructure project that will impact the domestic market. On the export side, we are watching my sister, Commercial Manager for LNG, closely as they push towards the completion of LNG Train 7. which would then increase our export capacity significantly. I'll pause there, Taji. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obong. Just a quick follow-on question on that. I know it's a sensitive issue, but does that infrastructure that you spoke to, does it have any potential from a strategic perspective to have any influence on pricing in maybe the short to medium term? Is that also something that can impact pricing? I think some people have been asking that question.
Yeah, thanks, Taji. I mean, with a lot of the economists, they would tell you that once you are able to connect demand with supply, increasing your supply availability, then if you are then operating, like JJ Musa would say, if you are then operating outside your domestic obligations, then you have a lot more flexibility with pricing. So yes, I believe that at the moment that infrastructure is completed, we get these significant volumes of gas flowing, we should be able to have more robust commercial conversations happening that will sort of improve what we sort of call what the customer is seeing as an end user price. But remember also that the regulator plays a key role in monitoring what is the best domestic price in the market. And there, the NMDPRA is very active, working that space. We're hoping that they also provide additional clarity every year. So the next round of pricing announcements will most probably be 1st of April 2025. But JJ Musa is on the call, and I'm sure he will have something to say on that.
Okay, so before we leave you, still speaking on the decade of gas now, there are targets that have been set in terms of supply side targets, demand side targets, and also the investments that are required. I mean, we're now in 2024, going very quickly into 2025. So the question I have is that, are we still on track for those initial projections on the supply side estimates and also the demand side estimates for the decade of gas, and also your opinion on the pace? I know NJI did speak about this, on the pace of the current investments, and is there any gap that exists from your unique vantage perspective, and maybe what needs to be done? I know a lot of information bundled into that question.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think what I would say is that we have, as an industry, we have seen remarkable acceleration between last year and this year. All the key asks. In February, we saw the president put in place executive orders that has made the development of gas for shallow water and onshore more attractive. In fact, the independent analysis shows that for every project that you were doing in upstream in that terrain, it improves the overall internal rate of returns by 5 to 9%. So basically, nobody, like NGI, you could be saying, nobody should be telling us that gas development in onshore and shallow water Nigeria is no longer attractive from an economic perspective. So we just then need to find the right investors that would make that decision and take FID. And that's why you've seen the sort of FID announcements come up in January, in June. We expect 3 more this year. Same thing also on the infrastructure. Like I've said, the minister, together with the industry, is monitoring the completion of these critical projects every week. The NMPCL GCO is top on his agenda. And we have confidence that with EVP also looking at this, that we'll be able to sort of cross this line this year, before the end of the year. On the pricing bit, we have started the journey. Like I've said, we have settled government. The president has approved settling arrears, and there's now a pricing structure that is transparent, managed by the NMDPRA, so people know what they get, whether they are playing in CNG, they are playing in LNG, or they're playing in pipeline gas. And that's always a key important factor, to be sure that you know what is the price end to end in a sector that you sort of want to play. The decade of gas is a decade of investment, like you always tell me, Taji Ogbe. And I think, and that is why I am very sort of committed to join hands with NGI Yoko plays at the global and African level to continue to pass the message that Nigeria is ready for that investment. And if we work together, we'll see that investment and we'll be able to sort of enjoy the benefits that come from the huge gas resources that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obong. And one last question in this session. Ease of doing business is always an issue that comes up. Can you give just one key recommendation that would, in your opinion, improve the ease of doing business in our business in Nigeria?
This is for me? I thought
yes,
I thought we push ease of business to the regulator.
Okay.
And maybe we go back to the honorable minister. But I think
okay.
But I think the president has been very clear that he wants to drive a Nigeria that is conducive for investors coming. And it's how the different parastatals then begin to position themselves around that vision that would then create the right atmosphere for Nigeria youth working in across Africa and North Africa and North America and the US and Asia to bring in more people. But I see the will, and I think for me, it's about what is the tone at the top. Let's go get this done. Let's use gas to improve our prosperity. Let's drive the growth of gas in country. And I think the minister also runs a very open door policy, where I think for people on the call, if you do have projects, if you do have ideas where you want to do business and you are seeing challenges, he's always said he's willing to meet people. To hear what the challenges are around the gas sector space, and then co-create a solution with everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Obong. I can see Engineer Musa. Do you want to jump in and have some comments?
Yes, I just want to add to what the director of the Decade of Gas just said. Actually, the investment climate is good, and there's a lot of encouragement going on. And that is why I mentioned that we brought in a set of regulations for the industry, and we are still engaging with the industry. The authority is open to any comments or any suggestions from the industry. And we are not averse. The regulations are not cast in concrete. We are open to review them again. And very grateful to PRA. Before, in the old regime, to review a regulation is a very Herculean task. But now it has simplified it. If you have any issues and you make your comments very clear and we find that yes, it's relevant, we have to, our NMDPRA will look into it and also update the regulation. But one thing that I also wanted to add to is that, to the investors, when you are coming to invest, do your homework very well. Because as a director, gas, I have seen where people write a letter and they're asking you to do feasibility for them because you want to simplify work for them. It's not easy to put regulatory work together. We have a very big industry and room for expansion, and then also to be doing consultancy, if I would say, feasibility studies for investors. You should be able to do your homework. And then where you have gray areas or you need clearance from the regulatory side, you come, and we are always, anybody that has engaged authority will let you know that we are always open to answer your questions any time of the day. So the encouragement is very high, and I pray that people will latch on it and take advantage of the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Musa. So still hold on, I'm still going to engage with you. I hear you saying for those of you out there, I think that's a business opportunity there. I think there are opportunities for people who, to provide consultancy services. The regulator has just given a hint there. But Engineer Musa as well, I also want to confirm and thank you and the ACE. You did mention the distribution of the network code, and we are in receipt of a copy of that. Thank you very much. So talking about that network code now, there may be some people on the call that don't really know what is meant by that. Can you just give us a brief overview of the network code? It's a new one, right? So what is the difference between this one and the one that was there before? And then also, can you talk to us towards the level of implementation of the domestic gas delivery obligations. Again, you've spoken about domestic gas demand and the importance of increasing and satisfying that demand to achieving some of our national aspirations. So basically, if you can just talk to us a bit about the new network code, how it differs from the previous one, what are the major changes or things to note out for, and then what in your view is the level of implementation of the domestic gas delivery obligations.
Okay, thank you very much. Please permit me to share my screen.
Please go ahead.
I have a few slide presentation that I want to share. So are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I am. If you could possibly, yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the network code? Like I said in my opening remark, the aspiration of the authority chief executive in NMDPRA is to see that we leverage on the pipelines or the transportation system in Nigeria to turn it into a business hub. And we were able to create a regulation on the development of gas exchange. So we want the network to form as a leverage where players come in there and make money, serious money, good money. So for us to do that, what we inherited from the old system is a regime where if you want to develop a pipeline, you must have to have an asset to develop that pipeline. But the PIA came and changed the narrative that people, even without asset, you can build a network where you put it on an open access, or people can come and transport gas out of it. So the present one that we have, which we are using as a test case, is the ELFs. And to let you know, in the ELFs, we have about 19 injectors, and we have close to about 119 or 20 off-takers. So everybody is playing, and people play the way they want it. So we felt that, look, for us to standardize, make it transparent, make it efficient, make it open to everybody, is to bring out a code. So the gas transportation network code is actually a set of rules that we have put in place to actually mature the market and also bring our transparency and also confidence to the investors. So in that case, just the first slide that I put here, these are the players. We have the regulator, we have the operator, which is the transporter, we have agents, even on the network, and we have shippers that ship gas. So the other one is just to show you what the ELFs can do. And also for the network code, we are not only limiting it to only the ELFs. We have the intention, after test trying on ELFs and we matured it, we move it to other transportation network, other private network. Because wherever you have people injecting gas and people off taking gas, supposed to come under the code. So this is the overall view of the revision 1. And I will tell you why we have to go to the revision 1. And I will take some few examples of why we have to move from revision 0 to revision 1. So the PIA, like I said, it expanded the network. So the draft code recognize all network as presented in the PIA. So all the producers that are producing into the code are also recognized. It supports penetration, improve domestic gas across the country. And we have the introduction of the wholesale supplier, which has the right to take gas from the producer to where it is being used through the wholesale customer. Then we have the regional distributors, we have the local. So this is just to give you the review. But then you ask me, what is the difference between the Rev 0 and the Rev 1? So these are the needs. What we have, the need assessment of the gap that pushed us to review the revision 0 to revision 1. And for your information, also, the code and the PIA has provision for review as the need arises. For instance, if we know the UK code has spanned almost 200 years or thereabout. And there are so many upgrading of the code based on the market as the market matures and develops. So we discovered that the revision 0 is limited on the scope. The evolution of gas transportation also in the PIA also showed that the code was limited in that. The code was skewed towards the operator, and then the other participants in the code were enfranchised. So we had to look at that. Then also inadequate provisions in the old code vis-a-vis the PIA requirements. And then there are also a lot of misalignment. And most importantly, the lacking of the statutory backing of the revision 0. That is what made us to review the revision 0 and brought it to revision 1. So, like I said, in the new code now, the scope has changed from being only for the else. It now took over all transportation network on open access gas pipeline. So then the unit of measurement was also a concern. The transportation tariff, we have the charge, which is capacity plus commodity plus overrun. The overrun in the old code was 130%, which I said was skewed towards the transporter. But in the new code, we reviewed it to 110. And what is overrun? Overrun means when you're playing on the system and you decide to take more than what is given to you, then you will be penalized. What is allocated to you, you stick to it. If you refuse to and you take more than what is given to you, we'll penalize you. But even as we penalize you, we want to encourage the market. So that is why the tariff was reduced instead of being high, as it was in the revision 0. And then we also migrate legacy contracts by 6 months from August 2020. So that was expunged. So non-court arrangement, it was expunged, and all contracts need to be migrated now. The measurement reconciliation was also coordinated by the authority. But before it was at the discretion of the operator and the shipper, which we felt it was not right. And then the introduction of the shrinkage factor for the shrinkage gas. In the old code, it was determined by operator. And then, but the new one now, it shall be approved. Even as the operator determined, it has to be approved by the authority. If you don't approve it, it cannot be implemented. The entering regime, we have 85 bar, but now in the new code, entry regime is based on segment design approved by authority, which for your information, for the industry information now, we are conducting a modeling to determine the pressure regime on each of the segment on the earth. So the pressure regime will not be like it is one figure, but it will depend on where you're coming in. And also the same thing with the export point meter, the exit point meter. All meters shall conform to the relevant approved status by authority, instead of the one that people just put any kind of meter they want as given in the old code. Then also the maintenance plans. In the old code, we have operator will establish their own plan. But this one now is the operator and the shipper will have to come together. And why do we have to do that? We have to do that because we discovered that when a shipper is putting his gas, he needs the off-taker to take it. But where the shipper wants to give the gas, the off-taker is down on maintenance, the gas is stranded in the pipeline. So now everybody has to come together and sit down and discuss and agree on how to go about maintenance so that we now interface and align and synergize with each other. The invoicing, misalignment with NESI and gas value chain. But now agreed aligned with NESI and value chain, because in the invoice of the previous one, we discovered that it's misalignment, so we had to work with the stakeholders to correct it. Then licensing, the code 1 was silent on the licensing because there was no provision in the old system, but now in the PIA there are provisions for licensing, and so the revision 1 has to take care of that and made it mandatory for everybody to be licensed. and so many other things. But also to let us know that because also after we pass the revision 1, this year, because the network has moved further, we are also instigating a revision 2, which will be coming up this year by October or November. We have to revise the revision 1. And don't forget, I said there is a provision to trigger revision when we see the market developing, and there are other new areas that we are seeing that we have not captured. So we are going to review it. And when we are going to review it, it's going to be a stakeholder engagement. It's not only authority that will review it. We'll call all the stakeholders to play. So in terms of operationalization of the code, so far, we have seen that we have 15 gas to power stakeholders, and 10 of them are already onboarded, and the other 5 are working on onboarding. And I think before September this year, all of them will be onboarded. For the gas-based industry, we have 3, and 1 is onboarded, and the other ones are working on it. For the gas to commercial, we have 24, and 21 have already onboarded, and then we have 1 transporter. And then after we have moved, we will now be able to bring the other network to fall under the code. In terms of the journey, we have achieved interim shrinkage factor of 3%. It's interim, and it's for 12 months. We are already working to develop a model that will determine the shrinkage factor on each of the segments of the network automatically without authority fixing it. And the team is already on ground working on that. We have commenced monthly, quarterly, and half-yearly reconciliation where the imbalance or no imbalance is settled. That is the balancing of the network. We also commenced system balancing on the network to instill discipline. And then we conducted reconciliation exercise in 2023, and we have done the first year of 2024 also with all the stakeholders. We have established measurement loss factor to instill discipline on the network. Because like I said, the Ref 1 has standardized the type of metering and the requirement for metering in line with the regulatory requirement. So we have already started because we discovered a lot of stakeholders are not meeting and they were not willing to meet. So we have to bring out the measurement loss factor. So like I said, we are starting another review. The measurement loss factor is one of the aspects that was not captured in the revision 1, because we have specified in the revision 1 all the requirement and the condition of the metering system, because we believe, or the code believe, that everybody will play by the rule, but we discover that there are some players that are not playing by the rule. So we are going to update the revision 1 to include measurement loss factor, which is not in that document yet. So the look ahead, like I said, we are developing a factor model to determine the factor real time. We want to approve the tariff methodology for the network, the transportation tariff methodology, which is in the making. And I think by the end of August or September, we should have the methodology published. Then we also are working to align all the stakeholders on their turnaround maintenance, both for the producers and the off-takers. We want to align, and also the transporter, so that we'll be sure that the system is up and running and filled with gas. We also want to migrate all used pipeline system to comply with the code regime, like I've said. Now, this is the plan of action that we have set for ourselves in authority this year. So issue revision 1, we have issued. Issue shippers license to GenCo is ongoing, and many of them, like I said, in the table. Develop and launch Engr phase 2. The Engr phase 2 actually is to give the authority real-time monitoring, because we are already publishing daily activities on the network, but it is done manually now. So we are now developing the platform where this will be real-time. So every day you go, you will see the activity on the network the previous day. Develop and use network curtailment hierarchy. We have already issued that document out. Approve and issue network shrinkage factor. We have issued the interim 3%, and we're working on the permanent one. Develop, divide the gas network into segments and assign minimum entry. This is ongoing. And then audit the network to identify compliance status of all nodes and connected requirements on the code. That audit was done 2023. That is what influenced the measurement loss factor, because we discovered a lot of non-compliance. So we now brought the measurement loss factor. Like I said, the network or the code is actually meant to bring transparency to the system. Then revise and activate gas transportation dashboard, which is ongoing. Institute a periodic network reconciliation exercise with all stakeholders, which has started and is ongoing. Now, what is the outlook that we have? The outlook is improving gas market regulatory impact. To enhance gas supply through optimization of the gas network performance, which we are doing. We are actually working assiduously. The target was June 2024 to mature the network, but we still had a slippage. But I'm happy to announce to you that 2 weeks ago, we were able to achieve balancing on the network, which is our target. Gradual implementation of PIA prescribed licensing regime. I've seen a lot of questions there. Regime on wholesale, regime on shippers license, regime on the transporters license. We have already commenced that, but we are working. And then the next one, the GDL, is the gas distribution license, which is now taken from the main backbone to the end users, which some people have spoken about, and MEMAN also spoke about. We are completing the mapping that will enable us to now start issuing the gas distribution license to gas traders. And then also develop a GIS map using the network coordinate. We are also gathering all the coordinate from the transporter and also from the stakeholder to update the GIS map that we have for the country. Some people have asked that question also. Review and approve gas transportation tariff methodology, which I said will be ready by end of this month or next month. Develop a model for the determination of shrinkage factor is already ongoing. And we hope by December, we should be able to start test running the model. Then introduce regulatory gas swapping between gas producers to bring more gas to the domestic market. Actually, it's a concept that NMDPRA is trying to test run to see how it works. And the summary of that is, every year, Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission issue a domestic obligation to the players in the upstream. And the law says if you don't bring the gas to the domestic market that is assigned to you, there is a consequence management. But we discovered in authority that, yes, if you pay the consequence management in terms of punitive measure, it adds money to the government, but it does not bring the gas to the market. And I'm sure my honorable minister wants the gas to the market rather than collecting the money from the defaulters. So we are trying to use this opportunity, because most of the issue like we discussed here is infrastructure. But we have people that are already playing in the domestic market that have infrastructure, robust infrastructure. And we have people that are playing in the export market, have robust infrastructure, but they don't have access to the domestic market. So these two people, we are trying to bring them together to see how they will agree to form a surrogate for each other. I mean, surrogate now to take the gas for the person going to the export and take it to the domestic on his behalf, and he takes the gas for the one playing in the domestic market that has exceeded his domestic obligation and take it to the export market so that both of them can benefit from the agreement. So that is what we are doing. And that is where I want to round up my presentation. Thank you very much.
Engineer Musa, so you've spoken about the network code, and of course, very, very impactful and important to the industry. But these are exciting times for the industry, and all eyes are on the authority at this time. So what should we expect in terms of additional regulatory inputs from the authority, maybe over the next 6 months?
Okay, so the additional regulatory input that we are going to get, we are actually going to fully introduce the gas distribution license. We know that that is the provision that the PIA has brought in, which is a very, very key opportunity. We are working with the industry to see how we can actually franchise some of those areas, open up some of those good markets Like we know that the AKK is already in the pipeline, will be commissioned next year or thereabout, where it takes the gas from Abuja up to Katsina. So there are other markets around that backbone that now we want to start issuing license for investors to go to those areas, tee off from the main line and distribute to the people. So these are the main things that we're actually targeting. The other one that we're also targeting, like I said, the network's supposed to be a business hub. So there are players that actually ship gas through the network, but there are agents that their own is that, oh, they have gas and they have people that wants to get the gas. They now get the gas, give it to a shipper, and shipper transport it through the transporter to the off-taker. So we also want to start issuing this agent license. And then we also have, so a typical example of an agent is the gas aggregation company. So we also want to start issuing the license for look at the word here. Sorry, the gas exchange. You know, we also want to have players on the gas exchange. So you are a broker and you go to the gas exchange, you'll be able to broker businesses and transactions. You'll be able to get gas and give to somebody and then contact the transporter and say, yes, somebody wanted gas, I've been able to secure gas for the person and we want to transport, we enter into agreement and we send it. So all these are coming up. And then, like also I've said, also the maturity of the network. We want to get such a way where we will be able to, you sit down at home, you sleep well because you know your business is making money on the network for you. So that is where authority is actually pushing. So we are doing that with regulations, we are doing that with directives. We hear people when they give suggestions to us. So it's an opportunity also, if you have ideas, please share with authority. We'll look into it and we'll be able to. And also there's an also important area because the CNG, the LPG market, the distribution market is new. There are technologies that are coming up. So technology providers that are on the platform, if you have a technology, please contact authority. We'll look at the technology and approve it for you and introduce it into the market for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So one more thing, sir. So when we talk of ease of doing business, I know the authority is the enabler. So you are the listening ear for the ease of doing business, but also our Honorable Minister of State Petroleum Resources Gas is here. So from your unique vantage position, what would you say is your maybe one key recommendation to improve the ease of doing business in our industry?
Okay. You know, if I had one of the panelists and then also follow up with some of the questions on the Q&A, you know, people talk about bureaucracy. So one of the key aspects that authority is pursuing is automation. And you know, that the cost of transport, traveling, you know, you need to fly from here and there is really very, very high. So we are trying to make it a situation where you sit at the comfort of your house, your office, wherever you are, out of the country, online, you can log in, apply, and you follow with the process. You know, one good thing about the PIA has also given a timeline to the authority that if somebody apply within this period, if you don't answer him, he deems he has gotten the license. So we try to make it in such a way that the person, you know, not saying, oh, I applied and I don't know what they are doing, but he will be able to follow the process online, see it, how it's going about, and then you'll be able to appreciate the effort the authority is putting in to get license for him.
Thank you so very much, Engineer Musa. So a quick word to the hosts. Please you can send me a message to let me know how I am doing on time. These conversations are quite intriguing, quite interesting. I'm sure everybody on this call is intrigued, interested, and I think we want it to continue. So I'm just going to remind us about the house rules. We have a Q&A box to our attendees. please type in your question into that Q&A box. And please remember to indicate the person that you want to actually answer that question. And I would like to remind our panelists that please scroll through the questions. I'm going to come back after this round of structured questions. I'm going to come back to each one of you and give you like 5 or 6 minutes to give your closing remarks. And then I will also expect that you would also speak to some of the questions that you've seen in the Q&A box. I know, Engineer Musa, you've already spoken to some of those questions, but I'll still ask you and Mr. Obong to continue to look through. I will still come back to you at the closing part of this particular event for you to just talk through those questions and then give your closing remarks. So thank you very much. I'm going to move now to Mr. NJ Ayuk. If you're still here, so Engineer Musa, you can kindly help us stop sharing your screen. Or if our technical people are here, they can also assist in stopping that. So, Mr. Ayuk, I have a few questions for you. Are you there, sir? Hello, Mr. Ayuk, if you can hear me, you're muted. Right. Yeah, I can't hear you yet. Can you hear me? I can see you, but I can't hear you yet. And our technical hosts, if you can kindly assist to for Engineer Musa. Yes, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Right. So I have a few questions for you. So the first question I have is, we're always talking about the global narratives when it comes to energy transition. So what strategy would you advocate for us to influence that narrative, the global narrative, on energy transition for African countries from an African perspective?
I think from an African perspective, we have an amazing role to play in an energy transition, but we have to also always start with the conversation as not an energy transition, but a just transition. You can't turn around and look at people who have 2.73% greenhouse gas emissions and expect them to be those that are going to really carry the brunt of this transition. At a time when you have Europe producing more gas than ever, yesterday, Norway sanctioned 17 field development projects. Well, that's going to be a combination of oil and natural gas. The UK is going back to coal, same as Germany, and import most of South Africa's coal. You can look at a country like Nigeria with abundant gas resources, which if you combine Nigeria and all of Africa's gas and you produce them, today you might get our greenhouse gas emissions will go up by just 0.68%. That's just a dent when it comes into really impacting the greenhouse gas emission and global and the climate crisis. Yes, we cannot ignore the climate crisis, but we have an obligation first to Africans, first to Nigerians. And that obligation is to produce every drop of hydrocarbons you can find in that country to take care of its people. But at the same time, we also have been really caught up in a dialogue where we want to please other people to be seen as the good guys by saying we are going to abandon these resources which they are using. Big question we ask when we talk about regulatory changes on how you look at that and you shape that is that what is holding us in Nigeria and across Africa from declaring natural gas as green? What is stopping us? We are not bold enough to say we want to use these resources. Europe got into a crisis during the war in Ukraine, and they decided that natural gas and nuclear is going to be green energy. They redefined it as green energy, and they went on to use their banks to finance it. Today, you can't find one African bank that is willing to say we're going to invest in gas development, let alone get international banks. Most Nigerian producers, most Nigerian marginal holders, most infrastructure development that has to do with gas, they're having a rough time finding financing. You're not going to base that only on, let's say, the African Energy Bank that is still being set up, but it's not going to fix your problems, or relying on maybe local Nigerian banks to do that. I think we should be very futuristic and very bold. Why can't we declare past legislations declaring natural gas as green energy? You have a crisis. I don't think that 90 million Nigerians without electricity means something we should be proud of. And at the same time, even in the big cities where there's electricity, you can hear those big sounds of generators going around every day. That is the crisis. So it comes on us at a time when we have to really look at shaping a conversation, but that conversation comes with us being bold. The Europeans were bold enough to say natural gas is green, and they funded it. We should be taking those steps, but also we should be also looking at banks that boycott funding Nigeria's finance in the gas industry. They shouldn't be allowed to get the best kind of deals when it comes to your bonds or other kind of transactions that will really do that. You can't be funding those that don't fund you. This is how we take actionable steps to shape that dialogue than being those who just protest and scream and complain and be victims. I think we need to turn around that game from being victims to being active participants on how we shape that. So I'll leave you there, but I think there is a big play in that. And don't only think about Nigeria and gas in Nigeria. Look at how you're going to use the Intra-Africa Free Trade Agreement and bringing gas across Africa, like what one of his panelists just talked about. You've seen what the deal last week with Equatorial Guinea, but also moving LNG across the value chain within Africa and really being able to drive that. Then you start really shaping that dialogue, because what would happen if Europe or most of these countries say they don't want to receive gas or even oil coming from out of Nigeria or Africa? Then you start having to deal with issues around stranded assets. Then you start having to deal with issues because our lack of investment in infrastructure has not really helped us to be able to hold our own when they come with this big global drive for a transition that we're not ready. So we need to start paying attention on those issues and then get really critical. But pay attention to the above ground risk issues, because the fact of the matter is that the time is now, but you're not going to move if you don't do those above ground risk issues. So we should need to sometimes we get stuck in a paralysis of analysis when we look at this, but let's really try to it's our time to move. And I'll stop right there. I know a lot of people have other comments on this same issue.
Okay, thank you very much, NJ. I've just been informed that actually we were, a bit short on time. So I'm just going to quickly move, if you don't mind, to Mr. Isong. Mr. Isong, the question I have for you is, from the perspective of your organization, MEMAN, what is the main challenge that needs to be addressed to support rapid adoption of gas as a fuel of choice? If you can give me a 3-minute answer.
Okay, I will try, Taji. I think the most important thing is lack of information. I've been going through many of the questions that are asked. It's all about information. Indeed, when we were approached by the authorities, they wanted us to participate in CNG. I think we have a history of LPG in Nigeria. It's a supply chain that we know quite well. When it comes to CNG is new, and it's a parallel supply chain. It's not the same at all with LPG. So that is why we decided to pull our resources and set up a competency center so that we can gather all the information together. We have first movers, we have fast followers, we have different people in the market, and we have access to you, the NGA, we have access to the Presidential Task Force, to the Decade of Gas, to the NGEP. So we gather all this information into our community center and share to our members. It helps them to arrive at the decisions which are necessary in terms of investments, in terms of investment costs, in terms of the market, in terms of the supply sources, those decisions that you need to take to make your investment decisions. And then also, when we talk about safety is it's a key issue for my members. And so the expertise, the competencies that we need to deliver the product safely to the market, because as you can imagine, we are at the forefront of that engagement with the market. When we talk about CNG, it's extremely important that imagine what would happen if a commercial vehicle left your forecourt and then there was an explosion. It would be unthinkable. So it's a key consideration for us, managing the safety of the conversion, for instance, is extremely important, and of the utilization and the use. So that is where we are particularly engaged in investing in training, investing in passing information, and engaging in the market. The information that we gather is not just for ourselves; it's for the industry as a whole, as we support the expansion of gas in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Isong. And I'll quickly go to Engineer Tolulope Longe to ask you, basically, how can women in leadership roles drive the growth of Nigeria's gas industry, especially in the CNG, LPG, and LNG sectors? What do you think is the critical role that women can play in this?
Okay, thank you. So regarding women in leadership roles and what they can do to drive growth for Nigeria's gas industry, I would say for me, it's around a couple of things. I think the first one is policy change. Yeah. I think there needs to be more advocacy for policy change, and that is what we as women in energy, oil, and gas are also doing, to be able to advocate to make the playing field much better, to be able to help women also be able to play in that arena. A classic example was recently, I think sometime this year, there was this headline news around Shell selling its assets in the domestic market to a consortium of Renaissance. And when you look at the buyers of that, those assets, they were all men, all the companies represented, all the key players in the market, all men. So maybe because traditionally men also have certain access to certain networks and opportunities that women don't have. So I think there's opportunity to be able to advocate for gender sensitive policies and regulations. Literally all the Nigerian assets being divested from by international IOCs have been largely taken up by organizations traditionally either owned or run by men. So I think there's an opportunity there in terms of advocacy to be able to advocate for gender sensitive policies and regulation. I think another thing is generally as women leaders in the industry, there's opportunity to leverage on innovation. Innovation is big. I think if you go through the question, a lot of people have been asking about AI. What is the role of AI? How can we leverage on AI? I think AI is big and it's going to get even bigger as we progress. So some of the classic things that you start to see, for instance, is today we have what we call smart plants, where there's less emphasis on physical presence of human beings, which means as women, some of the things that could traditionally hold us down in terms of family, in terms of women-related issues can also be leveraged, because then it means potentially you can be in your house and be able to leverage technology to be able to work on those assets as a key stakeholder in those assets, in operating it, and driving for efficiency, improved production, and reduction of costs in order to be able to bring additional value to the table. I think some of the other things that we need to definitely do as women is continue to foster collaborations. Collaborations, my personal opinion is that if you look across the industry, a lot of women leaders today, at one point or the other in their career, were probably uplifted by a man. A man must have said, okay, I think this person can do this job. I think this job should be given to this person. So somewhere along your career, there's always at least one man that leverage on what you could do, what knowledge you add, and what capacity you add in order to be able to promote you. And I think as women, we also need to start to do that more often. Today, we have a number of women in various strategic positions in various parts of Nigeria, whether it's government, whether it's the industry. And I think we can start to leverage that as well to also promote other women, to give them opportunities, and as well as using the position where you sit today. So if I sit today as an MD or a director of a particular MDA, I can use that to leverage in partnership with across the entire industry. For instance, in the oil and gas industry, I can use that to leverage across government organizations at the various tiers of government, as well as within the communities as well. There are women in the community that have the capacity, but lack the necessary or requisite knowledge, as somebody already pointed. In a lot of the chat, a lot of what people want is actually knowledge, but somebody has knowledge, it's domiciled somewhere, but it's not readily available to the people that actually need the knowledge. And sometimes it's not just the knowledge, it's also the financial funding. Today, when a lot of women approach the financial institutions, they're possibly likely to get rejected relative to their counterparts that are male. So I think there are opportunities in those areas as well, fostering collaboration across industry, governments, and the communities in order to be able to further give opportunities to other women. And I think some of the
because of time, right? There's a question that a lot of people have also been asking that I would like you to address.
Okay, let me leave it at that. But there's also opportunity for mentoring and coaching the next generation of women to show them so that they can shorten the time it takes for them to be able to also contribute significantly to the development of Nigeria as well as the industry. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now with your NLNG cap, as a dominant player in LNG production, does NLNG have plans to change its pricing mechanism, adopting a local pricing framework instead of a price indexed against Argos or Mount Bellevue to help bring the price down?
Okay, thanks. So the thing with the LPG industry is, and since we came into this industry since 2007, and we made a conscious effort as part of our mantra of helping to build a better Nigeria, and we deliberately created certain things to be able to drive the market. At that time, we were a market maker. We were basically almost dictating to a large extent the market price at the time, because the total consumption in Nigeria was what, 50 KT, 70 KT. But over the years, that has significantly changed. Last year alone, I think consumption of LPG in Nigeria was something like 1.3 million tons per annum. NLNG as an entity probably supplied about 30 to 40% of that entire market. So we're no longer a market maker, we're a price taker. So other things actually dictate the market price, and we just tie into what the price in the market is. I believe this year alone, our board has taken a decision to change the pricing mechanism in certain respects, and that is gradually being rolled out. I think we had an engagement with industry stakeholders in the last 2 months or thereabouts to sensitize them with regards to that. And one other thing that NLNG has always done is, almost from time that I can remember, we have always asked buyers to pay in Naira rather than dollars. So they do not even need to source for dollars before they make payments to Nigeria LNG. So I think I would also add that the market is dynamic, things keep changing, and we are an organization that listens to our customers. So we listen, we get feedback from the customers, and we attempt to make changes where opportunity exists. So I would say today we're no longer a market maker. We don't dictate the price in the market. A lot of forces dictate the price in the market. So we're just a price taker as opposed to a market maker. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. So I want to quickly go to my last speaker, Barrister Justin Ezeala. If you're there, sir, I think in just about 3 or 4 minutes, because we're really running out of time. If you can speak to I know you've already spoken to some of the strategies to increase gas production for export and domestic utilization, but if you can just speak quickly to give an overview of the recently signed gas pipeline agreement for the Gulf of Guinea and where we are with the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline. And also if you can just give quick advice to market players who are seeking feedstock for their gas projects. If you can hear me, Barrister Isiala.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I think the minister aptly touched on the current gas pipeline projects with Morocco and Gulf of Guinea. I mean, that's something that's been ongoing in his field. But I would like to particularly talk about people who want to come into this gas business, CNG business, the retail business, which is our forte. And I think that's what interests most Nigerians most in terms of how do they come into contact with CNG, as we call it. Now, the government has done a lot for us. The government has given us waivers on duties for CNG materials, buses. They've given us concessional pricing, gas dominated by NMDPRA. They've given us some waivers from taxes for some of these items. They've also given us a tariff, exemptions from shrinkage in terms of cost. And they've also given us a concessional transportation tariff by the transporter. All this is to let us know that they have a teeth in the game. So what do they want us to do? We as Nigerians should now begin to build on what the government has done. The challenge most Nigerians see is that where am I going to get gas from to run this business? But like you see, gas is everywhere. The next 2, 3, 4 months, you're going to have more gas than people will want. So at the end of the day, people want to see, where can I locate my CNG facility? Where is the nearest place? And they're looking at the near term. If you have an existing CNG facility and the AKK line runs through it, so another pipeline comes through, you just scale it up to another place. In the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, the business is still going to be quite profitable for people to move around their CNG facilities. So they are very easy to put together, very easy to move. Now, a lot of people have reached out to us from out of the country. How do I start the business? Do I need to register a company? What regulations do I need? And I think listening to what NMDPRA has said over the last couple of minutes, is giving us a big potential. This is how I can enter this business. But again, we being whom the gas business revolves around in Nigeria, domestic gas marketing. So most of the key players are partners, and we would like to hold the hand of any person who would like to come into the business, teach you the ropes. Some mistakes have been made. You don't have to repeat it as a newcomer. So at the moment, NGML, NMPC Gas Pipeline Company, is currently reaching out to people who are interested in this business. We're trying to make sure that we can develop these zones. Some zones will develop faster than others, obviously because of demand and accessibility to gas. But at the end of the day, the idea is that we have CNG available in every nook and cranny of the country. And I think finally also to assuage Nigerians that this is something that is going to last. We are beginning to partner with people, bring in these kit manufacturers. The biggest problem people have experienced is, where do I do conversion? Do it safely, do it properly, and do it at a cost-effective manner, in a cost-effective manner. We currently partner with some of our partner, NICO in particular, and we retrofit these cars so that we have the ability to use both gas and petrol. So we have places where we can do it safely and conveniently. But the more we replicate these conversion stations around, the easier it will be for people to convert their vehicles. And then ultimately, the goal of NGML and its partners is to domesticate the manufacture of kits and the conversion kits in Nigeria so that it's cheaper. And then we can also build the expertise we need for people to not only build these kits, but also to convert these cars safely. I don't know if we still have time, but that's a summary of where we are heading. It's exciting times for Nigeria. And we're excited to lead that charge towards the general use of CNG in Nigeria as an alternative fuel source. NNPC and NGM in particular is proud to be the market leader there. Thank you, Taj.
Thank you very much, Barrister Justin Ediala. And with that, I think I've come to the end of my allotted time. I've just been informed that time has run out. Apologies to any one of our participants if your question was not directly answered. The beauty of this online format is that all your questions have been recorded and they will actually be shared and looked at by the ministry team. And I'm sure in subsequent engagements, it will be taken as inputs, and you will see the responsiveness of the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources. Thank you very much to my panelists. Thank you very much to the Honorable Minister of State for having me. My name is Taji Okwe. I'm the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Gas Association. And with that, I will hand over to my host, Mr. Abel Igege. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, Taji Ogbe. Thank you very much for moderating, and I thank the panelists. It's really exciting time. We'll be having more engagement to get feedback from the stakeholder. I'll now hand over to the Honorable Minister for him to close the webinar and thank the audience. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I really appreciate the engagement. So I bring you greetings from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, on whose benevolence I'm here as the Minister of State Petroleum Resources, Gas. Yeah, let me begin by expressing my sincere thanks to Mr. Taji Obe, Executive Secretary, Nigerian Gas Association, for competence and management of the session very successfully. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I express my sincere thanks to Engineer Joseph Musa, Director, Gas Development and Operation from NMDPRA. You have given a great insight and, of course, encouraging investors on the route to go through and get into the system. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Ed Ubong, Coordinating Director, Decade of Gas. I appreciate your insights, and let me at this point express my sincere thanks to you for the clean cooking gas initiative that you have put in place and distribution of free cylinders to the women and the youth. You have done in Abuja, and in the next couple of weeks, you'll be in Lagos and Akwa Ibom. I salute you. Thank you. Mr. Clement Isong, my brother, CEO, MEMAN, I appreciate your contribution. Let me equally acknowledge the 1,000 cylinders you have pledged to identify with the Decade of Gas initiative that we are going in to preach the gospel of gas. Thank you. God bless you. My brother, Enyo Ayok, I still remember our engagement in the United Arab Emirates. I still recognize that face, and I appreciate your contribution. I hope we will meet again soon, or you invite me to Cameroon. Justin Ezela, High Chief, MD NNPC Gas Marketing Limited. Thanks to for all what you have been doing, and your contribution is very, very interesting. My pledge to you is, you led me to commission 12 CNG stations. My commitment and assignment to you is I'm looking forward to further invitation to commission CNG stations across the nation in the remaining 36 states. So thank you, because I know you are going to do that in collaboration with the NNPC. I appreciate that. Engineer Tolulope, Commercial Manager, NLNG, and VP Sector, Women in the Energy. Thank you very much. Today, you have really met some people know the role of NLNG in the financing of the economy of our country, Nigeria. I believe we'll proceed from there to another level. The one thing I request from you is I'm looking forward for an invitation that Trend 7 has been completed. I will really salute you. To over 500 participants, I appreciate your commitment to identify with us. This goes a long way to show us that you are really interested in the gas sector. So credit to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who has shown this commitment to addressing the gas sector. Thank you so much, and God bless. Go back.